there's so many impactful points of a person's life. You can't assume you know somebody. You never know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't think there's a time you remember seeing my father without a drink in his hand or a cigarette. He was a good man. Never at one point in my life that I feel not loved, regardless of what he had going on, but you just knew. He was a hard man. I had no financial aid paperwork, and so I couldn't pay the bill. And I got kicked out of school that didn't even start. Everything I owned was in a 1986 Chevy Monza. I ended up going back to the school a couple days later, and I was standing in line trying to get some financial aid, and the track coach was standing there, and the guy, I didn't know it was track coach at the time, but he's saying there, "You need help?" And he kind of took me in and started explaining the paperwork to me and gave me the right people, and he ended up running track for him. I'm honored to be able to do this job. I'm honored to be able to represent my race with a uniform. And I'm honored to be able to go out there and be able to be in a position to make a difference. I wake up every day and I'm just amazed that I get to go to work and do the things that I do, and it's an impressive feeling, and I don't think a lot of people feel that way. As an adult, you need to always keep in mind you still learn. I learn every day.
This week on American Real, we bring you Sammy Davis, a sergeant and director of training for the Broome County Police Academy in upstate New York. Sammy takes us along for a Sunday street ride on his lifelong journey, which wasn't always smooth. As the youngest of 12 children, there were lots of bumps in the road he was challenged to overcome, including losing both of his parents before the age of 13. He had to learn how to stand up for himself, and in the process developed a gift in standing up for others, thriving in his law enforcement career. The sergeant tells us about how he's found his passion in helping to develop some of New York's finest of tomorrow. On this Mother's Day, he gives a great deal of credit to his wife, who helped him navigate the system which propelled his career. I applaud Sammy for his incredible determination. I thank him and all the men and women of law enforcement for their tireless service, and I'm honored to deliver the sergeant's empowering story with you today. And speaking of empowering stories, how would you like to find your voice and own your story? I'd like to personally invite you to join our live tribe and take our 21-day challenge through our free private Facebook group. Your challenge will be to post a live 60-second video each day for 21 straight days to build skills of confidence, commitment, leadership, and accountability, all while growing your network with like-minded people from around the world. You'll quickly see how turning up each day gives you more clarity, purpose, and drive to become your best self. American Real is here to support you and provide you with the tools you need to become more present and conscious in valuing the power of your own story. Click on the link below and join American Real Live Tribe 21 and start your 21-day challenge today. And now, without further ado, I bring to you Mr. Sammy Davis.
And welcome to American Real. This is Roger Brooks, and today my very special guest is Sammy Davis, the Director of Training at the Police Academy, and Sergeant as well.
Yeah.
Sammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and we were talking off camera a little bit, and I didn't want to hear too much, but the one thing that strikes me most about you is that you love what you do for a living.
To say the least. I wake up every day and I'm just amazed that I get to go to work and do the things that I do, and it's an impressive feeling, and I don't think a lot of people feel that way.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's rare today for people to really love what they do. I love doing this,
Right.
Right. You love doing your job, but unfortunately, everyone's not in that position, and they have to put food on the table, and they take what they could get,
Right.
or they have hobbies to keep them happy. But so let's talk about how did you get involved in law enforcement, and how did you get involved in the training portion of it? Because that's such an important role today, to train our future officers that are going to be the feet on the street.
It is, and I like to think that I've always wanted to be an officer, but I can honestly tell you I didn't always live my lifestyle that way. As a young man, where I grew up, I've always seen police officers, particularly one agency, New York State Trooper. It's what people seem to remember and see most. And as a kid, there's a lot of situations where my family came in contact with them. And I just remember seeing them as a little man, and not really any communication between the two of us, but just that appearance. And I just remember saying, it's just the uniform, the presence, it just commanded respect to me. So as a little guy, I'm thinking, man, that's pretty cool. But a lot of things happened in my life, which ultimately now, when I first came to this area here, I did, I guess, let me go into that. When I first moved here, because like I said, I'm not from here, met my wife at college. We, like most kids, end up sticking together like glue. Her family wasn't happy with it, which is understandable now. But when I moved here, we moved to Corning first after we left college. And I moved here. It was like most people wouldn't even understand, because Corning didn't work out for us. She left, came here after we had our first kid, and my only thought was, I can't let this person leave with my only child and me fall into the pitfalls of what society is, let a kid grow up without a father. So I moved here. Wow. Didn't know a soul here, and I'll never forget it, because I had a 1985 Ford Tempo, and didn't have a job, didn't have a place to stay. She moved in with her family, and I decided, what are you going to do? So I think it's the McDonald's by the Arch in Endicott. I used to go in there every morning, wash up, then I would sleep in my car at night. And then I went to Eastern Temporaries. I did that for 2 weeks and ended up getting a job at Amphenol and Endwell. Very successful time there, but again, I slowly wormed my way back in her life, and always was there for my first child. And things went well. I ended up being there for 10 years. Wow. Ended up getting a promotion like every 2 years, and again, finally got me on first apartment and all that stuff, and quit living out of the car.
Let's talk about that. So that's such a great story, because so many people give up on relationships. Right. And even if you think it's the right one for you, for whatever reason, maybe one person is not seeing eye to eye with the other. But can you talk about when you were in the midst of that?
Yeah.
And you were on the other side of it, and you were trying to earn her back. How did you cope with that day to day?
For me, I guess my upbringing has always been full of turmoil. It really has, and I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I guess to be a young man, I guess, and then at that point in my life, that's what it was. So I always thought I was doing the right things, but I wasn't, and it's what I now know. I was just being selfish. So she was trying to help me, even back then. I mean, you're talking, geez, 20 some years ago. And I look back at it now, and she was trying to help me and encourage me, but I was, I just wanted to do my own thing. I'm thinking I'm being a father, so how did I cope with that? I kind of pushed her away and thought I was doing the right things, doing my own thing, and wouldn't listen. But I finally just slowly started doing the things that at least that she was trying to guide me to do, better things. Not like she was trying to control me, but give advice, and I would slowly listen to advice, do better things, for the family, not just me. As a youngster, I'll definitely say I lived a very selfish life.
And I think a lot of young men do, right? And
Yeah.
the women seem to be a couple of years ahead or a few years ahead in maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it takes a little bit to catch up to that.
Ain't that the truth?
And sometimes it takes being shut out of someone's life to make you really want to earn what you did. And
Well, I tell you, now you just said earn it. Now, the point I am, where I'm in my life right now, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the time that I didn't do the right things. So
great life lesson.
absolutely, and I'm just very saddened that it took me this long to come to that realization, because it's a great life that I have right now. And like we were talking about work, how happy I am. When work is happy, I'm happy. But the one thing that I learned in life, happy wife, happy life. And
sure.
I tell you what, now that I started feeding it and believing it, it's only a saying, but it's true. Makes life so much easier, when you're not feuding with your life's partner.
No doubt.
I've done a lot of wrong, and like I said, I'm sorry, not only to her but to anybody else in my life when I just wasn't doing right. And I'm not perfect by any means, but you know what? I'm a little bit wiser now, and it shows with where I'm at and what I'm doing.
So Sammy, let's talk about your childhood. What an interesting childhood you have. You grew up with a really large family, and your mom passed when you were just a child, right?
Yeah. Geez. I don't have any regrets about my past, but it, like you said, it was what now today people would consider dysfunctional. Father was from Macon, Georgia, and mother from Jacksonville, Florida. They obviously migrated here to New York before I was born, but I'm the youngest of 12. 7 of us boys, 5 girls, and I tell you what, you talk about having to fight for everything that you have if it's not given to you, because very few things are given to you at that point. Tough. So life back then, I grew up in a rural area. It's called Avoca, New York. I guess for people around here to understand it, comparable to, I guess, Owego,
Small town. Small town.
Very small town, and we lived like 2 miles out of town. My father owned and operated, it's like a migrant worker business, and most people have no clue what that is. And I try to explain it to people. He had probably 10 acres. We had our house, which I thought was huge at the time because so many kids, big family. But on 10 acres, there was like row houses on this property. I guess like campus housing, really. A very low-grade campus housing. And my father built and owned and operated that. So the people that were there is really where some of the things that come about. They were all from all over our nation. My father would build these campers out of buses. And he was very good with his hands in creating things, and it was pretty interesting when people see him. It's like, but he would travel around the states periodically and pick up people who were homeless. A lot of people who were going through turmoil in their lives and just wanted to get away. Some criminals, crazy enough as it sounds. But ultimately, he would bring all these people back, and they would work for him. Work was hard. Work was, people don't understand what hard work was like, but labor, true labor work.
Was it a farm? What were they doing?
We didn't actually have the farm on our, but we would travel to different areas.
So he'd bring his crew with him.
Yeah. He was bringing his crew, more or less. They all worked for him and trying to control these people and get them to work. Because, like I said, most of them are probably drug addicts, alcoholics, or just disobedient people, period. But we would travel to like onion fields and we'd have to weed these fields. I mean, you're talking day in and day out. I mean, if you've ever seen like the farming, I mean, it's endless work.
And were your kids coming along as well?
Yeah, you know, because when we were little, before we were in school, we had to go tag along. So sometimes we would work, but it was more or less just play. And then you kind of try to stay out of everybody's way. The chicken business, the poultry business was the worst. You know, you talk about people with health issues. Back then, didn't think anything of it. But if you've ever been into one of the buildings, I mean, you're talking probably 300 yards long, a building, and cages maybe 3 by 3 with 5, 6 chickens inside, and they're stacked. I mean, but you're talking millions of chickens. So inside this building, the ventilation's horrible, so the dust, the feces, everything, but this was the normal. So you talk about these people going in and working, doing this every day for lunch. What do you have? Chicken. It's just,
wow.
It's just amazing. So it really gives me a perspective of what I'm doing now. Would I want to do something like that forever? No. But my dad did what he had to do, and yeah, it was just tough.
And did he raise all 12 of you kids?
Yeah. We were all same parents. You know, so he raised us all, and let me tell you, he was what most people would say an angry man. You know, he wasn't very sociable. But when you think about now as a parent, the pressures that he must have felt, you know, I often, sometimes I sit back and I think about that, you know, because everybody did. You know, you're always mad, and you know, he drank. I don't think there was a time you remember seeing my father without a drink in his hand or a cigarette. You know, and it was just something that
was his
part of him.
mechanism.
Absolutely. You know, and he was a good man. Never at one point in my life that I feel not loved, regardless of what he had going on. But you just knew he was a hard man.
And what did he think about education?
You know, I think my father maybe had a 6th grade education, but he was a man of just so much knowledge. He was a controller. You know, he was a boss, you know, so education, it was like I don't know, streets education from where he comes from.
Right.
It wasn't book smarts. So education in our house wasn't something that was pushed upon us. You know, it was like you get up and go to work. And I guess a model that I've always used to live by, you work hard, play hard. You know, when you go out and you tear it up, but when you have to go to work, no matter what, you go to work. No matter what that job is, you're dependable. You're going to be there. You know, and he was that kind of man, you know, and I would give anything to be able to spend 5 minutes with him right now, because he passed when I was 12.
Oh,
you
man.
know, my mother died when I was 3,
Wow.
and my father passed when I was 12. And
where did you go?
One of my brothers moved in, took over really the business. He was 32 at the time. He had been married. He had a wife, 2 kids, 2 young daughters. So when he moved in, I also had a nephew, one of my older sister's sons. He was 3 years older than me. So he was my nephew, but I was older than him, and I was his uncle, you know, so it was crazy. So he lived there, we both lived there. And this is where you think life was interesting then, seeing the things I seen growing up, you know, with my father and the people. My brother moves in. I'm thinking he's old, you know, 32 years old, you know, got a family. He struggled to maintain a business. You know, he had his own, you know, you'd pick up your life and all of a sudden you're put in another situation. He got into a lot of drugs, you know, marriage problems. He used to party a lot. And you'll have all kind of shady people over there. So I lived with him all those years. Finally, my nephew was 2 grades ahead of me, so 3 grades ahead of me. I remember his senior year. This is a pivotal point because, you know, he was my nephew. He was always with us. I mean, he was part of the family. He was like a brother to me. But I'll never forget it. He graduated, and watching my brother deal with his family, but also still trying to take care of us. I'll never forget after he graduated, it was like 2 weeks, and it was like, okay, what are you going to do? Because back then, nobody went to college.
Right.
And my nephew used to always tell me, I don't know what I'm going to do. So he ended up leaving, and he made it, you know, hard road. But I remember thinking to myself, I know this is my brother. I see the kind of things he's going through. What's going to happen to me? Here I'm 17, getting ready to graduate. End up going to graduation, and I'll never forget it. Now knowing what I know about kids graduating and what they get, I remember him giving me a case of beer and saying, you can have a few friends at the house. And I'm thinking, that was a great moment. He didn't have a lot to give, but to me, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so this is it. What's going to happen from here? Wow. I had always wanted to go in the military because a lot of my brothers went in the military. A lot of my family were military. But I had 2 coaches at my high school. And I remember, calling a Marine recruiter because I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't stay there. I was getting ready to sign the papers, and they were like, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, what am I going to do? And they said, go to college. What do you mean go to college? I didn't know anything about school. I didn't, I never researched anything, never had, didn't have that kind of guidance. It just wasn't a thing. Long story short, I ended up going to Alfred State. Packing up everything I had, going.
Did your coaches help
you
with the applications and
well,
all that?
Sort of. They did. I ended up getting enough done to go there. And I remember standing in the gym, and we're getting ready to financial aid and pay bills and all that stuff. And I remember getting up to the front of the line, and they were like, okay, well, you got papers, and did you take SATs? And I didn't even know what SATs were. CAT, I had no idea, and I had no financial aid paperwork, and so I couldn't pay the bill. And I got kicked out of school that didn't even start. Wow. Everything I owned was in a 1986 Chevy Monza, and I ended up driving all the way back home. I didn't know where to go, and one of my friends from high school just called him, and I said, listen, I don't know, what I'm saying, and it was pretty bad. His parents took me in. Wow. And I ended up going back to the school a couple days later. And I was standing in line trying to get some financial aid, and the track coach was standing there, and the guy, I didn't know it was track coach at the time, but he was standing there, you need help? And he kind of took me in and started explaining the paperwork to me and gave me the right people, and ended up running track for him. Gary Moore, good man. Man, 2 years at college, I met wife, and yeah.
That's awesome. And that family that took you in, wow.
Yeah, still talk to them today, the Corks. They were not the kind of people that you would think would take me in, given the young black male. They had lived up the road from me, and I knew Danny, the guy, the friend of mine. He was a grade ahead of me, so I knew him through school. We did sports together, but I didn't know his family like that. His dad was not a very warm guy. The day I met him, the day they brought me home, he was a drinker, Navy vet, and kind of a redneck, you know what I'm saying? And it was weird because we go into the house, and I'll never forget it. He introduced me to his mom, I knew her, you know what I'm saying? But, then he kind of said, can I stay there? And he goes, well, I got to go talk to Doug. That was him, and he always slept late, days he could. And as we were getting ready to go back to the bedroom, and I'll never forget it, all of a sudden you hear a gunshot. Yeah, my thought exactly, and we're like, oh my God, he was shooting a rooster that was crowing out of the back window because, hung over. Good man, but, just.
As a kid, though, that must have startled you.
Something I've never forgotten,
Right.
It was like, man. But it turns out to be one of the best families ever. They welcomed me in, and so periodically when I did, over my college years, I would come home. Didn't have a solid home, I would stay there. Or like I said, I had one of my other brothers. He let me come and go as well, but it was kind of just in and out of different places.
So Sammy, it really strikes me, this conversation, because, well, for a lot of reasons. One, I'm a white male, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what people of color go through.
Right.
I grew up with people of color, and to me, skin color is just skin color. I see the person for who they are.
Right.
But for people that don't understand what it's like to be a minority, it's not. Yes, you're at a disadvantage to start, and and then some, you hear people complain about everything. So I hear white males complain that, a minority will get a job over them, or a woman will get a job over them because they're white. So, that's neither here nor there, but it has to be somewhat challenging to grow up in society as a minority.
I have never regretted being a black man. I've never looked at it, and I'm sorry for if there's any disrespect, but you just said you said challenge, or to me, it's a part of life. You own it. Listen, this is who I am. But what a lot of people don't seem to understand is, even just because you're black, you could still have cultural differences. Someone who's black, grew up in an area like I did, it's a rural area, it's different from someone from New York City. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of similarities, but there's still a lot of cultural differences, and listen, I've owned it, and you experience a lot of things that some other people don't. Have I ever been discriminated against? Absolutely. Have I ever felt that someone had biases against me? Absolutely. But as a young man, growing up where I did, it's almost like, you could take the good and really just take those things and use them to your advantage, and the bad stuff, you learn from them. You learn certain reactions you're going to get from people, because I can tell you this, you got to learn to choose and fight your battles. If you go around being angry and because of you might be a little bit different than somebody else, you'll be fighting people your entire life. Mm-hmm. So I have lived my life trying to show people, listen, I'm just like anybody else.
Leading by example.
You know what I'm saying? And I've started doing that since I was younger, because I've always sort of been in different based on my surroundings. Growing up where I did, you were maybe one of two blacks around. And I'm very fortunate, like I said, my sisters moved to Rochester, so I spent a lot of time in cities. But I'm proud of where I come from, because it shaped me to the person that I am today, so.
No doubt, and that's how I see it. Like, I think your entire upbringing, with growing up with your dad and the struggles that he had and everything that you saw and were witnessed and were part of, and then your brother taking over and his challenges, this helped you become the person that you are. So you're able to take all of that knowledge and help these recruits coming through. Right. Listen,
you think about in this area here, how many there should be, and I know they're low, but at Binghamton, they should have maybe 150 officers. So you're looking at maybe 120 officers here. How many minorities are there at that department?
Very few.
2?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Something's wrong with that picture. Broome County Sheriff's Office, when I first moved here, like I said, I was sleeping in a car. Didn't know a soul here. I think the sheriff back then, maybe Gino D'Angelo. And all, even when I started the process of, and I didn't even know anything about civil service. My wife's the one who pushed me that way. I've always known, it's going to be scary, but that's what I want to do. And so you do your research, which you should. No black officers.
So let's talk about that, because this is American Real.
Yeah.
We're all about transparency here, okay?
Yeah.
There's a big problem in our society between police officers and citizens, people of color, people of not of color, not enough color in the. So what's the problem?
Oh my goodness.
What's the problem? I mean, where do we? And you're in the middle of it. So
all right. So
how do we get? Because we have to solve this problem.
Listen, as a problem. All right. So when I moved here, and everybody goes through different experiences. So for me, young man, moved here, going out all the time. In my 20s and coming home late at night. Now I know, listen, after midnight, there's only really 2 kinds of people that are out. If you're coming from a bar, some kind of trouble, or you're coming home from work. Normally I was the one coming home from the bar. I used to get stopped a lot. I remember at one point I had a couple tickets. Same officer, never forget it. And finally I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, I'm out at the bar, but I'm not dealing drugs or something like that. And it is what it is. And I remember one day, I looked at him and I said, you know what? I can do this job better than you. Still to this day, This person is an officer. We have great respect for each other now. I could have took that experience and it could have really went the other way, but like I said, I had to do a little self-reflecting for myself. We'll talk about everybody else in a second, but for myself, I had to say, why am I getting stopped all the time? Because I'm out. First and foremost, I'm out. You know, my car, let's think about the car. It had tinted windows, no front license plate. Was I speeding? So you got to kind of have a little bit of accountability and think, okay, well, maybe this isn't all just the officer. So that was really one of my first experiences. And I said, I had to do a self-reflect and say, okay, well, I can do this. So took tests. When I first got on the job, I worked for, because like I said, most people, you take civil service, you take a job wherever you can, because I took the State University police test, and I took, no, I didn't take the county test first. I think that was the only one I took. I took the Binghamton test as well. I had a friend that I'd met here through our kids who was trying to really push me into Binghamton. He was a state trooper at the time, and he just thought I'd be a good fit for Binghamton. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, you know, whatever. So we go out and he'd introduce me to people. And again, you know, I'm a black man, young black man, and you know, he was a white guy, and he was cool, he was good, you know, and I ended up taking the Binghamton test. And I tell you what, I've been here long enough, and I heard stories. Anybody should do their research if you're going to take a job. Don't take it just to take it. I'd heard certain stories about Binghamton officers myself, and just some turmoil, you know, and long story short, I did well enough on the test. They called me, and the chief at the time, getting in for an interview, him and the mayor, they offered me a job.
Wow.
I turned it down.
No kidding.
I called them and I said, you know what, with all due respect, I don't think my personality would fit here. I knew then about myself. You know, I was kind of growing up, and
decision.
It was a huge decision, because I got hired at SUNY Binghamton at the time, and that was not a good experience either. I think it was just a point in my life. I didn't get to go to academy right away, so you end up being what we call like a ride-along. So I got exposed to a lot, but not in the law enforcement way. I had a uniform, no gun, so I was angry because I couldn't do the job. A year and 8 months. They stuck me with an older gentleman. He was very salty. He had to be maybe a 50-year-old officer at the time. Probably never been around a whole lot of minorities his life, and I had to be with this man every day. You talk about an experience, culture shock, the problem blending. At first it was rough, but again, I'm just a ride-along. But I can tell you again, I started talking to the man and trying to get to know him, where he was from, his upbringing. He was like a retired major from the military. This man ended up giving me so much knowledge, because I took the time to get to know him, and he took the time to get to know me.
You embraced it.
You know what I'm saying? I did.
Yeah.
And I still,
went the other way,
still to this day, every now and then, I will make my way out to see him, and he looks at me and just says, I can't believe you're where you are.
That's awesome.
And again, you know, so your question about other people, other officers. I teach at the college as well. I teach at Broome Community College, or SUNY Broome. Been there since 2015. One of my biggest passions is teaching. Most of my students are from New York City. And the one question I've asked them, okay, you guys are sitting in a criminal justice classroom. You want to be officers? A good portion say no. They want to be lawyers. Why would you want to be lawyers? To combat police brutality. And that's what I say. I kind of snicker and I say, listen, if you think there's such a problem with the officers, it's not an easy job. Take the test. Take the test. Because it is not an easy job. The first time I came on the job and I got sent to Whitney Point, to a particular trailer park up there, you can imagine the look that people will give you. But again, it's how you come off, how you talk to people. And so I am trying to present myself in a professional manner to these young generation, and just let them see it's not all cops are the way you view them. So I try to live by example and let them see, and see them in the classroom, because initially I don't tell them what I do unless they took my class previously. And when I tell them, it's like they can't even believe it. You're a what? Yeah, I'm a cop. Matter of fact, I run the police academy, and it's awesome. It's awesome, that reaction.
So again, I mean, there's a few things going on in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course, there's bad cops.
Yes.
But there's a lot of good cops.
Yes.
There's bad in every field.
Yes.
There's good in every field. My question is, why does society, I mean, I grew up like you, like we respected police officers.
Yeah.
We respected what they said, what they, any instruction, hello. Why is there such turmoil? And I know, there's been some shootings, of course. There's this, but you're on.
There's no one answer. There's a lot of things we got going on in society now where it's the problem. And a lot of people say it starts in the home. There's a lot of single parent homes. Mm-hmm. Being a parent of, my wife is 100% black. I got my daughter's 25, my oldest son is 22, and my youngest son is 15. Being a parent is hard. The job is easy compared to being a parent. And I can honestly say, obviously my upbringing, did I know how to be a parent? No. It's been a learning curve. So you hear today, what you hear in society is, there's a lot of young black males growing up in a single family home, and we need to stop that first. More men need to take care of their children. It starts in the home.
And you're living proof.
I'm living proof, and I can tell you, even with me being at home, even with my wife, it's a hard task. So I can't imagine what it's like for a single parent, whether it's a male or a female. Right. And I'm having struggles with my own son, my 22-year-old son. I mean, it's not struggles. It's just you want the best for them. So I think, to go back to your question, the home life really is huge. Having good structure, a good base. Second of all, you may mention there's some bad cops. With social media, we all know somebody could do something out in California, and if they're wearing a uniform, it's going to be reflective on every officer. Mm-hmm. So it's just a sign of times with the social media. Mm-hmm. And everybody's, is right. You can have your own opinion, and I get that. Mm-hmm. But now, that's one of the things law enforcement is doing now to combat the media, the videos, the body cams. Mm-hmm. So and my opinion on that is, I'm all about the body cam because usually it works in our favor. But to me, I've worked hard to become an officer. Most officers don't wake up thinking I'm going to go out and shoot somebody today and get sued. Nobody wants that because the aftermath of that for the officer, for his family, it's horrific. Mm-hmm. For the community that person lives in, it's horrific. So the fact that people feel you didn't turn your body cam on, so now I don't believe what you say. Are you serious? We go through a lot to get on the job. We go through a lot of training, and I do most of the training. It's a slap in the face to think that you can't trust me because I don't have a body cam on. That's heartbreaking to me, right. But I get it. I get it, but.
And what do you tell the young guys coming through that may have concerns about being in a certain position? I mean, you just have to really focus, right? You have to focus on your job, do everything you were trained to do.
These young guys, I try to bring the realism to them. I say, listen, I know you guys, you see things. I hope you watch the news. It's not an easy job. It wasn't then, it's not now, because we're not the heroes anymore in society's eyes, and that's heartbreaking to me. Yes, there's been a lot of officers in some questionable, judgmental situations. There's no doubt about it. And I feel heartbroken for the officers and the families, the victims, the people that were involved. It's a no-win situation for everybody. But we're here to really keep the chaos away. That we really are, because can you imagine? And I always use this analogy in my class. I compare it to what is that movie? Purge. Can you imagine a life without officers? Oh. You know what I mean? Who do people call, you know, when you get burglarized? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's us. We're there to help, and I really wish people would understand that. But
and it's interesting you say that, because my first thought is when, you know, these people are marching against cops and all. My first thought is, what are you going to do when you're really in need of a police officer? When your wife is being held up, or you know, you're in this. What do you? So that's the hard part. You know, there's a lot of anger in this world.
And I'm glad you said it, because there is a lot of anger, and I get it. Just because I'm not always defending cops. You know, I am a cop, and I love it, but I understand. So I try to be understanding of people who don't really know what we go through. So that's part of my response. I've taken on as my responsibility. My job is a training director, to run the police academy, and to when that's not going on, to train experienced officers. You know, kind of refresh them on materials, but I've kind of taken it upon myself to do as much community policing as I can, because I can. Mm-hmm. I think that I portray myself in a decent enough manner, professional. I try to be as articulate when I speak as I can be. For one, being a black cop, I'm honored to be able to do this job. I'm honored to be able to represent my race with a uniform. Absolutely. And I'm honored to be able to go out there and be able to be in a position to make a difference. You know, just like you were saying with what you do, your passion, what we're doing right now, I'm in the same boat. You know, nobody told me you have to go out and do these community policing events, but you know what? I put it on my shoulder, and yeah, you know why? Because I have young black males out there, you know, in my class, my sons, and my family. So if we all don't do our part to try to repair what's damaged, it's just going to get worse. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not just me. I mean, it's all of us doing our part, and I'm doing my part. So nobody can ever say that Sam did not. It's not about me. I represent the agency that I work for. Yeah. I represent every agency in this county. Anybody who wears a uniform. So I never try to say me. I'm just a person who has the time. The boss that Sheriff Harder is, I can't even say enough about this man. He's old school, but as far as a role model, a mentor, there is none better.
And he empowers you, right?
Oh my goodness, man. He comes in and he'll poke me a little bit, but he empowers me in ways that you would not believe. Yeah. You know, he asks me what I'm doing, and he'll tell me when it's something that I shouldn't be doing, but he has such an open mind, because he understands the position I'm in, the potential that I have to make a difference, and he allows me to do it, because it makes us all look better. It's not about me, it's not about him, and again, how many people stand up and do this?
How do we get more minorities into law enforcement? Because I think it is such it's needed. Yeah. I mean, you go to New York City, it's right. I mean, I don't see a disproportion in New York. I don't know, maybe there is, but in the smaller towns across America, do they have the applicants? I mean, are you trying to help in that regard? Like, are you trying to help talk to kids and bring them in, or what? Like, what's the reality of that?
You know, when I first came on the job, Sheriff Harder actually said to me after like my second year here, because this has always been a concern. I know what I did to get on this job. I've found something I wanted to do. I went for it. I knew what it. And my wife, backbone. She kind of, you know, because I didn't know what civil service was, so.
But it's an education process, right? If you don't know, someone needs to tell you and go through the...
So what do you need to do is get more officers out there to represent well. I try to be one of I hope, many. I started teaching to try to help, because people don't really know. A lot of younger guys, younger people have never had a good dealing with an officer, unless you've been stopped by an officer and get a ticket, or coming out of the bar. That's not the interaction that's going to really push somebody into career. So I go out there and I try to just represent myself well and talk to them and tell them what the job is really like. Believe it or not, a lot of black people don't think they can do this job for one reason or another. I have a lot of younger black males from the city tell me, "We can't do that. Where we come from, it's not respectable." I'm like, are you kidding me? People complain about it, but the best way to change anything is from the inside. So I'm just trying to spread the word that it's true. It's true, because now I look at the opportunities that I have. I've tried to do a lot of community policing. One of my classes 2 semesters ago I was teaching was community policing, and I don't force my kids. Part of the class is I make them do a presentation on, what do you think? Either do a presentation on an old program like DARE, Moms Against Drugs, something of that nature, or make one up. And I don't know if you heard, but this younger black male in my class, Marquise Orr, very intelligent young man, very vocal young man, but just sitting in my class. He had a couple dealings with officers, and he was little tense. But me and him, we spoke, and he ended up doing his presentation. And it was called Meet the Officer Behind the Badge. Meet the person behind the badge. I told him, I liked it so much, such a good idea. I said, what kind of person would I be as an officer and having the opportunity not making this come to true flourishing? Wow. We did it. It didn't come off very well because of a few things. A lot of people didn't, because of where they didn't want to come to the sheriff's office. So whatever. But I did my part. Mm-hmm. You had a young man with a great idea. And I went to my boss, and the sheriff was like, do it. That's awesome. And we did it. And I'm doing it. Like I said, we just did a run. It was called the Hornets Run the Hill. So I took all the officers that I could muster up, all the instructors I had, all the police recruits, and all the SUNY Broome students, criminal justice or not. And we mapped out a 1-mile run centered around the obstacle course at the sheriff's office. And the kids could come meet officers and talk to them.
It's so important. And that's the other thing I was going to say is I think it needs to start younger. Mm-hmm. Officers need to be in the schools and present. And I drop my daughter off at high school every morning. And what I love is there's an officer out there, Armando. And Armando, every kid that goes by, he's high-fiving, he's hugging, he's fist bumping. I mean, it's the best feeling to sit there and watch that every single day, because I know that interaction is important, and we need to see more of that. But
it's when you come into this line of work, most officers are Type A personality. I've never took a test. I can be a controlling person, but I guess I'm a very sociable person. The reason why I say this is because it takes the right officer to be able to be put in a school. Mm-hmm. It's tough to deal with the younger generation in a school setting. Kids are kids, and we were in school. Then you kind of understand what it's like, but not every officer can go into school. Mm-hmm. Armando, great guy, great personality. Absolutely. Yeah. There's another Binghamton officer who I think East Middle, Art Williams, black officer who transferred from Syracuse, good friend of mine. But yeah. In the school setting, it's huge to get them when they're young. But I tell you what, it takes a special officer to put in that setting because you can really make it or break it, in that kind of situation. But so I'm not a school resource officer, but I go to schools quite a bit. I go to UE. We're doing a lunch with the law May 3rd, so because they got a group down there called the Squad. There's a teacher, Kyle Wolf. Tried to take all the minority, the kids, or any kids really, but primarily the minorities. Mm-hmm. And they've been doing it for years. So usually I go down every year and do a presentation. But this year we're combining with the police recruits, the Squad, all these high school kids, and we're going to bring in the SUNY Broome kids, a group called the Men of Excellence. So we're going to do a lunch. It's called Lunch with the Law, May 3rd.
That's so important.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm just glad to be a part of it. It's not I'm just doing my part.
So for young kids that are out there that are somewhat interested or thinking about law enforcement, what advice would you give them?
Be careful with the Facebook. Be careful with the social media. That's nowadays, it's an intensive background. And social media is just so free. Like I said, you can pretty much post whatever you want. People get looked into because of what they post. Even if somebody sends you something, might be a little racist or something like that. You might not be, but they sent you viewed it, you sent it. So be careful with that.
Be careful what you share.
Yeah,
right? Be
yeah,
careful what what you post.
Pictures, things of that nature. It's tough because my generation, we didn't have that, but now it's accepted with them. Stay in shape. One of the biggest killers for young people we're seeing now is the physical fitness test. The academic test first, because that's the first thing you take, but then the physical fitness test, I run the PT test. You're talking maybe 20% of these kids failing the physical fitness test.
And is it state mandated?
State mandated.
Yeah.
It's basic push-ups, sit-ups, and run. You'd be amazed how many 20-year-olds can't do. To average for male, it's like 38 sit-ups in a minute. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So because they're not active like I guess I was when I was a kid. I mean, you even see in the school system they can't do some of the things, dodgeball, things like that. But stay in shape. I'm actually developing a class. It's called the Career Law Enforcement Preparation Course. I'm going to be teaching next semester. Brand new course, developing so how people to get online and look for civil service, how to take a civil service test, and practice the physical fitness test and ethics. So again, I got the support from the school. I told them where I see some of the failings are, and they're allowing me to develop it. So I'm hoping, that the kids come take the course and we get more in there. So, like I said, I'm always thinking and trying to do my part.
Yeah.
So
no, and it's great to hear, and hopefully there's people like you all around the country and really all around the world that are also, have the people that are making the decisions give them, empower them to allow them to come up with these new programs, because you have to adapt to society. So the kids today aren't as physically fit as they were when we were growing up. So now hopefully you could get to them earlier in advance. So if they have a year or two before they take their test, they're ready.
Yeah, and one of the things like a lot of younger people want to get into law enforcement, they'll internships. Yeah. Old school internship is getting in a car, riding around with somebody, and you get to kind of be exposed to it, but you really can't do anything. So I've noticed this, and I try to entertain as many interns as I can. So I went to the sheriff and I said, listen, I might be able to help this situation twofold. An officer, really, you're liable for an intern in a car, and they can't get out. It's not really exciting, so you try to entertain them as much as you can. But I said to the sheriff, let them do a ride along maybe once, twice. Let them come to the academy.
See.
Yeah, let them come to the academy and see firsthand what they're going to. So if they ever do take this, they're not such shock when they come. I actually gave one the opportunity to do physical fitness with us. I mean, obviously, sign a waiver and all that. And he was like, wow.
Just to see what it's like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it gives them a firsthand experience. So I'm always trying to think of new ideas. My department is great. I couldn't have ended up in a better department, more respectful to my thoughts and ideas. To keep an open mind is absolutely huge. The four people really that rank above me that I give all the respect to, because I bounce a lot of ideas off them, but again, it goes back to being happy at job, and that's why. Yeah. They trust my judgment, but I also respect their opinion, so I'll bounce things off them, and we all benefit from it. Not just them, but all the community members that I can go out and kind of reach, and I don't know, I kind of smile, Fred, Senator Akshar. I remember when I first came into law enforcement, he was just getting promoted. He was my boss twice, and I look at what kind of person he was as an officer, as a detective sergeant. I look at Sheriff Harder. When you got people like that around you to continue to mentor you, if you take advice when given, you can't go wrong. As an adult, you need to always keep in mind you still learn. I learn every day. I learn from my interns. When I get BU interns that come over here and I'll try to sit and talk. I'm a little different, I guess, than most officers. Now, I think so. I'm very relaxed. I can flip a switch in a heartbeat, but you learn by talking to people, even the young people. Well, what changes do you think need to be made? Some you can and some you can't. And I keep an open mind. My wife keeps me humble. You know, she puts me in check. You know, kind of let me know when, you know, enough's enough. You know, it's I learn from so many people.
That's great.
You know, the people you have out on your show. You know, Ebony. You know, I'd met her because, again, community police, and I went out to an event at her shop, and I saw her on your show, and I'm like, that's so she's been out there doing her part. The Mike Pride, you know, listen, when you watch someone like that, there's so many impactful points of a person's life. You can't assume you know somebody. You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
You know, Ty Muse, I met him through kids, you know, starting a youth track program, and that's how I first really met him. And didn't even know who he was, and now, like I said, I mean, he's Ty Muse. You know, great guy, and like I said, I try to watch and model myself after all these great people in our community. And I just hope that someday, you know, I can do all of the things I want to do for other people, you know. I don't know.
You're doing it today. You're doing a lot today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about mental toughness in this field. Obviously, there's days that are, I'm sure, you know, and I'm speaking especially the guys that are out on the street. How do you prepare for that every day?
You got to come in this job with thick skin to begin with. I was told that. Now being here, I truly understand that. Especially as a minority on this job, you know, I mean, you think about some of the situations you go into, you just have to constantly remind yourself, okay, don't take it personal. You know, I tell these young recruits, I tell my students in my class, as an officer, you have to keep reminding yourself, you signed up. You took a test, you took a job, you took an oath to handle other people's problems. There's no other way to put it. You know, occasionally you'll meet somebody good, somebody nice, but most of the time, remember what you signed up for. The motto, protect and serve. So when you're having a bad day, you're dealing with a drunk or you're a domestic, you signed up to handle other people's problems. So put your own self aside, handle what's presented in front of you the best possible way for the best possible outcome for everybody involved, including yourself. And remind yourself of that every day. Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal because, it's, you know, we get criticized sometimes even when we do the right thing. Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of keep encouraging. I tell a lot of war stories. Recruits love war stories, but when I'm teaching things like search and seizure, you know, about, you know, the Fourth Amendment and the big thing now, you know, Second Amendment. I tell them, especially if you are grateful enough to get out of this academy and be able to go serve your community, keep your personal opinion out of it. When you're wearing that uniform and you go on a complaint, no matter what it is, keep your personal opinion out of it because people can suck you in and you say things that you probably shouldn't say. Just handle the job, do your job, handle the situation put in front of you and move on. That's great advice. Yeah, you know, and listen, it's hard. It's very hard, you know, because some of these people can really suck you in and I don't know. Yeah. Tough.
Now, are you always in police mode as far as when you're out with your family? When you're, I mean, I would think it would be hard to turn that off.
You know, it's funny, I just went to another agency the other day to assist them with a hiring process. It's a smaller agency. And they did kind of like a scenario thing, you know, they're promoting somebody to a sergeant. And they do like a role model skit. They had a role player come in and he was a disgruntled employee that had to be counseled for tardiness, you know, coming in late. So they had this new person that's applying for this sergeant's position sit down and we're there evaluating them. And so it's funny you say this. This role player was great. I'm sitting there going, man, they scripting. So when we got done, I started talking to this role player. Oh, just retired now, but troubled. Because he sat there and said, you know, when I came on the job, you know, the people that I was surrounded by, you know, his supervisors, his FTO, always got to do this. You're always on. There was no off switch. Burned them out. Because when you leave, When you get out of the car, yes, you're an officer 24 hours a day, but when you go home, you can't treat your family like we have to treat some of the people on the streets. Yes, you're aware of your surroundings, so if you go out to a movie theater, you're cognizant of your surroundings, because most people don't look for exits. You know, most people don't go in and look up and down, you know, talk about situation awareness. I mean, yeah, you're on, but there's an off switch.
It's good to know.
Oh, yeah, because you burn yourself out.
Right.
You just talk about the pressure of constantly looking in police mode. You know, come on. You got to have downtime because, like anything else, you can burn yourself out. Yeah. You know, so I think I'm pretty even keel. When I'm outside of work, the big thing is, you know, carrying off duty. When I first came on a job, never, absolutely never. Because people make mistakes. So if I decide for whatever reason I'm off duty, not in uniform, dressed like I am now, I see something where I think I can help and pull my weapon, what do you think the chances are that an officer who maybe don't know me shows up? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
you put yourself at risk.
Yeah, you know, so I think I got a pretty good on-off switch, but what's changed now with all these active shooter situations, I carry more now off duties for the simple reason is because it's happening so rapidly, how would I feel if something happened? Just like we were saying outside, you know what I'm saying? How would I feel as an officer? And I didn't have, and I couldn't do anything to help somebody. So it's a real battle. That question you just asked me is a real battle, and you know, but I'm very laid back, very relaxed, and you know, I have some law enforcement friends, but what keeps me the way I've always been, a lot of friends, family that aren't officers. So we don't just talk about work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Get your mind off.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, you can't work 24 hours a day.
So, Sammy, what's in your future in law enforcement? Do you have any aspirations?
Oh, man.
Because you have so many great mentors, and you're still young, but where do you want to take this?
I didn't even think about being a supervisor now. All I know is you give me a task, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So did I ever dream of being a sergeant running the police academy? No. I ended up here because somebody thought I was qualified and thought I would be good at it. And I think the same thing now because other people have asked me that same question. It's like, you know what? I don't know. If the things I'm doing now qualify me for bigger and better things, if somebody thinks that I could better serve some other part of the community or whatever, I don't know. I do a lot right now. Teaching at the college takes up a lot of time. Doing this job takes a lot of time. I'm also a security consultant for another company called Priority One. I'm fortunate. I get to travel. One of the things I guess I'm decent at is give me a topic, I can create a class, and I go into a classroom and it's like turn the light on. I love it. I've been to California, been to Maryland, been to Connecticut, getting ready to go to Alabama.
And this allows you to really expand your reach.
Yeah, you know, when I teach, we have people call all the time here locally. Hey, you know, with all these shooters, we would like to educate our employees on workplace violence and what to do. I go out and do that. Somebody up at the new Broome Developmental called the sheriff the other day. He's my boss, and I said I got to go through him. And they wanted a situation awareness. You know what? You know, for the citizens, civilians to look for. Excuse me. I go up and I do a presentation for them. I don't get paid any extra for that, but you know what? Listen, if people are coming to us, and I can use my expertise to help somebody in a situation, I go. But like I said, I travel quite a bit for this other company. And I do, obviously, I'm part of Senator Axshar's staff. And these doors have opened up for me. And I never would have imagined them doing it, but apparently people see qualities in me.
And that's great because, again, to me, it's because you're a transparent person. Yeah. You are who you are. You stick to your convictions, and I think it's good. And more people need to do this in life because when they hide behind that mask,
right,
it's hard to get past that. And I think people could see that.
Right.
When you're yourself, and you love what you do, and you're able to show that, doors open.
Listen, man, watching your previous interviews, I'm sitting there going, man, tight suit, Senator Axelrod, the suit, and I'm sitting there going, that's when I sent you the text. I'm like, man, do I have to? And because my wife is, she's been huge, instrumental in me networking and going. Because one of the biggest things is when I leave work, where you're just talking about shutting down, what most people don't know, I like to be alone. I don't like to talk. I like to tinker, like my father. I guess that's one of the things I get. You know, I kind of resort back to my roots. I never forget where I come from. I never forget because it's me. But when you need something from me, I'm here. You know, man, I just am. And it's not like a fake appearance. It's not, but when I'm home, I just like to shut it down and just kind of relax. You know, so when I text you, I said, do I have to dress up? Listen, I'm riding a motorcycle, what I can, yeah. And I didn't want to be disrespectful to you, and that's why I said, man, what do I wear? You know, but I'm happy, and anybody else who knows me, listen, man, when I go home, I'm just very relaxed.
So let's talk about that. So you have a bike. You just mentioned you have a bike. Mm-hmm. You're wearing a Bike Week logo on your shirt.
Yeah.
That's one of your passions.
When I was younger, growing up where I did, I was pretty mischievous. I did some things, you know, as kids do, and I ended up getting in a little trouble when I was a kid, 12 years old, right before my father passed. And I had to go talk to a probation officer I was 12 years old. I'll never forget this woman's name, Bonnie Fulmer, in Steuben County. She was you talk about someone who's leaving an impression on you. I remember her name, I remember her parents, and it was like, man. But my father realized I just like to go. Dirt bikes. He started buying me dirt bikes. And I fell in love with it. I would get off the school bus and I would get on that bike and just ride for hours. We had a motocross track right behind our house, about a mile or two away. And I would go up there as a kid and watch. And, we didn't have a lot of money, but he would always buy me, because he knew it occupied me and I loved it. And I rode dirt bikes up until I was 16. And as soon as I turned 16, I traded it in and had street bikes ever since. I've had probably about maybe 17, 18 different street bikes at this point. The bike, I have two now, and I love it. I just love it. That's you talk about, just sit back being quiet. Nobody can call you. Nobody can talk to you. You're just riding, enjoying it. I'm amazed that I can travel to all the things I do. We're getting ready to go to Laconia in June. Nice. I love it. I just like it's a way to get away and have fun, and also just enjoy what I like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So you've been to Daytona.
Yes.
Now, what's the one out west? They do a big one.
Sturgis. We were the group of friends of mine. We were going to try to go this year, but with the academy going on, it's hard to get away because there's nobody there to do my job when I'm gone. And like I said, these I can't say I'm babysitting, but I'm their support. I'm their immediate supervisor, and I just choose not to go because to go out there, you're talking you need 2 weeks. Yeah. I don't. Sheriff would let me go. Because he approves my stuff, but I don't go. Daytona is before the academy. The one that we're going to Laconia, we're just going to take like a long weekend and go there. I go to Ocean City Bike Week every year in September. Again, just a long weekend. I just love it. The job affords me to have all this fun. I do my job, and it rewards me by allowing me to buy my toys.
It's a good balance because you need that, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything crazy, expensive. I don't care used, I don't have to have the best, and I don't try to be flashy. And I would hope anybody thinks by even talking about the motorcycles I have too, it's just I like it. It's what I do. And anybody who knows me, I have always had a motorcycle, and it makes me smile to even think about it, so yeah.
Cool. So if you were to go back and talk to the 20-year-old Sammy, knowing everything you know now, what advice would you give him?
Oh, be more respectful to my other half earlier in life, not put her through so much turmoil. That would be the first and foremost thing. Read more. Education, because I told you, my upbringing, education was not, there was not such an importance put on it. The things that I'm doing now, I'm so grateful that I picked it up later. You know, it took me 10 years to get my bachelor's degree. And I probably wouldn't even get it going back to when I started, because we dropped out of college, the wife and I, and we moved here. We were going to Broome, you know, we got into Broome. I was like, yeah, whatever. So we started taking classes together. But we were so competitive, you know, and I'm thinking, she ain't gonna get a degree and leave me. You know, it was kind of a joke, running joke, but.
When you're young, those are kind of the
yeah,
thoughts
but we were older, so we did it the hard way, you know. We were going to school on nights, and so I would tell that 20-year-old, stay in school, get it done when you're young. You know, going to school when you're older, it was meaningful to me because I was able to meet the key people at the right times. When I was working my bachelor's degree, there was a gentleman who is now deceased, Ira Tolbert. Makes me want to cry thinking about this man. It was a bad point in my life, and I'm trying to get through my education. My wife had finished hers, and I was struggling. Black professor, big class, and there was this book, and most of his class was read this book. It was just, I wasn't a big reader. And he gave me every option to finish this book. I failed his class. And I never returned the book. And it must have been a couple years later. I remember we were moving some stuff in the house, and I found this book. I said, I need to return this book to this man. He had passed. So I never got a chance to return the book. Never got a chance to tell him, thank you for at least keep giving me the efforts to learn. I ended up getting back in school, and I met another guy, Professor Leo Wilton. Young black man. And I kept thinking, you see very few black professors. His class was awesome. And I said, you know what? And that's when I started thinking about possibly I said, man, he really would give you an article to read, book, whatever to read, but then you come in and it's like a discussion. I met some people that I'm still friends with today, and this was, God, I mean, I graduated in 2002. Those moments in life, and now when I go into the classroom, I remember them. And I say, if you can find different ways to make people learn, give them opportunities, because not everybody will take the first opportunity. Right. For one reason or another. You know, again, you don't know what somebody's got going on at home. And I think about those two men that were my professors, and I tell you what, I hope that one of these students someday says that about me. You know what I'm saying? Because not that I'm on top of the world in everybody's eyes, but in my eyes, I couldn't do any better. I'm happy. Playing it forward, you know, so.
And that's what's important. I think it's taking advantage of the situations when the doors open, that you take advantage of those to open doors for others, which you're doing, like you said, paying it forward.
Yeah.
And Sam, this has been an incredible discussion. I could sit here for hours. And I'm so glad that we connected, and I want to remain friends. And you're part of the American Real family now. Yeah. And there's just so much to your backstory that I could see how all of that led up to the man that you are today, and you're doing some great things for our community. And thank you for your service, because
thank you.
It's important to me that we have leaders in law enforcement, and it's important for our young kids to see those leaders, and hopefully some of them will want to take that on as a career.
Train the next generation.
Yeah,
right. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. A lot of this stuff I don't ever talk about, but I'm honored to sit here when some of the other people have sat. But you're very, you're a good man.
Well, the feeling's mutual, but I can't let you go yet because I have one last question that I ask every guest, and I want to ask you is, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be remembered as an officer who did what he was supposed to. I don't want to be looked at any better than anybody else, but I want them to say that he was the best officer that he could be. That's it. You know, I don't want any awards, accolades. I want to be known as a person who did the job, whatever it is that it gave him, you know, and I just want people to smile when they think of me. He was a good officer. That's it, you know. I don't think I'm any specialer than the next person, but I chose this job, and I just want to do it the best of my abilities, and I want people to remember me for that. That's it.
Well, I'm proud of you, and I'm honored to know you, and thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
Very much.